In 401 after Common Era, Emperor Honorius moved the capital of the Western Roman Empire to Ravenna. In the 5th century, his half-sister Galla Placidia built her own mausoleum in that town. She also picked a central plan building, but this time in the shape of a Greek cross. This means that both arms of the cross were the same size. This building features clerestory windows. Clerestory windows are openings high on a wall, right below the roof structure, that allow for light in the middle of an otherwise dark room. But probably the most notable point of interest in this structure are the mosaics. Let's look at some of them in more detail. This is the Christ as the Good Shepherd mosaic. Remember, mosaics came from ancient Greece. We saw the Alexander mosaic, for example. Now the Christians are using the same technique to convey their stories from the Bible. In this context, it is not so important to make beautiful or naturalistic images. The main focus is to get the story right. We see Jesus sitting here in a wonderfully lush landscape. There is blue sky, rocks, animals, and vegetation. Jesus sits in a classical contrapposto position. His legs point into one direction, the upper body turns in the opposite one, and the head is again turned back so he can play with the sheep right next to him. But we instantly realize that this is not a Greek athlete competing at the Olympics. It is not important whether he has six-pack abs. It is important to tell the story of the Bible. And since the Western Roman Empire is about to end soon, the holders of this tradition can soon be found in the eastern half of the empire, in Byzantium. In Byzantine art, narrative is trump. Soon all the elements of this composition that are only nice to have but not essential to the storyline will fall by the wayside. Blue skies, landscapes, trees, and animals will fall away and only be shown if they are essential to the narrative. Readability of these stories is most important, and that is why we will see a tendency away from the aesthetics of the classical period. We will find that a new taste evolves, one that is decidedly unclassical. Backgrounds will be just gold. They will promise the faithful a golden Jerusalem in heaven. In 476, Ravenna fell to Honorius, who was the first Germanic king of Italy. He was overthrown by Theodoric, king of the Ostrogoths. Theodoric made Ravenna his capital in 493. In 504, Theodoric decided to build his own palace church, a three-aisled basilica dedicated to a local saint called Apollinaris. Apollinaris had been made Bishop of Ravenna by Saint Peter himself. He probably died and was buried in Classe, a suburb of Ravenna, in a church called Sant'Apollinare in Classe. Theodoric transferred his remains to his new palace church, which since then is called Sant'Apollinare Nuovo. The older church of Sant'Apollinare in Classe was the first grave site of this saint. Theodoric's new church has rich mosaic decorations in the nave, which come in 3 registers. Only the upper 2 originate from Theodoric's time. Between the clerestory windows are Old Testament patriarchs and prophets. Above, we see scenes from the life of Christ, alternating with decorative panels. One of them is the miracle of the loaves and fishes. Compared to the mosaics of Galla Placidia, this depiction is stripped down to the most essential parts of the story. There is no naturalistic background anymore, only flat gold. All figures are seen from the front. Jesus is dressed in imperial purple, a color usually reserved for the emperor alone. He is also identified by a halo. A halo or nimbus is a sign that this person has encountered the divine. This encounter permanently alters a person. They look different and radiate divine light. The halo helps to emphasize this. Before his death, Theodoric erected his mausoleum just outside Ravenna. It was built in 520 after Common Era. The structure of the mausoleum as we see it today is divided into two decagonal orders, one above the other. Both are made of white Istria stone. The roof is a single 230-ton piece of white stone, 10 meters in diameter. It is still unclear how this massive stone was placed on its current location. On the lower level is a room that was probably a chapel for funeral liturgies. A small stair leads to the upper floor. Located in the center of the floor is a circular porphyry stone sarcophagus in which Theodoric was buried. His remains were removed during Byzantine rule when the mausoleum was turned into a Christian oratory.